Supervisors tried to make me look bad, so I made them look worse. I'm an attorney and used to work at a state government office, where I had 2 supervisors, one for my practice group and one for my section, who from the very beginning decided to make it their business to treat me like poop. Section chief had a habit of sitting on client questions for days, then assigning them to me. Then, when the client would inevitably ask why it was taking so long to do their stuff, she'd respond only that I was the one working on that stuff, making it look like the delay was my fault. Similarly, group supervisors' favorite pastime was to try to get me in trouble with both clients and higher-ups in our office for not doing things fast enough, despite the fact that she would procrastinate for weeks on reviewing signing off on work I actually did very fast indeed. But what these hosserbeasts did not know was that I was saving all the emails they sent me that would include information like dates they assigned me work, etc. And B, one of the aforementioned higher-ups was my former boss during an externship in law school, so he liked me and knew I wasn't lazy or an idiot. So one day group supervisor assigned me a question from our client agency involving a citizen's public records request, and I prepared a draft response within an hour and sent it back to her. I needed her to sign off on it before I advised the client. But despite my getting a read receipt for my email, she didn't respond for the rest of the day. Or the rest of the week. Edit: in response to a question raised in the comments, I had a policy of following up with people when I didn't get timely responses, but had previously been told by this supervisor that she didn't need reminding about my emails, so I stopped doing that with her. The client was supposed to answer the records request within a tight deadline under the law, and eventually emailed group supervisor to ask where the hell their answer was. Group supervisor finally woke up and forwarded her original email assigning me the work to section chief to complain that I didn't do it in good time. And then section chief forwarded that to the client and told them it was my fault it wasn't done yet. So I, having finally had an trademark sign, rubbed my little hands together in delight and proceeded to reply all to section chief's email to client, attaching my email to group supervisor containing the draft response. I innocently wrote, "Apologies for the inconvenience, client. Our office rule is to wait for supervisory sign-off before providing advice, but I've nevertheless attached draft advice prepared on date. Group supervisor and section chief, do you agree with this advice? May client act upon it?" Forward that response to former boss and very politely ask him, in instances where there is a tight time frame to respond to a client question, is it okay to provide the client with provisional draft advice like this within the deadline but let them know a supervisor needs a little more time to do their review and sign off? The client ended up praising me for my efforts to get a response to him in a timely fashion, and former boss thanked me for my question but said it should never be an issue in the first place, then sent out an office-wide notice to remind supervisors that they must provide necessary sign-offs on advice within deadlines and must never blame those under them for delays in front of clients because that affects the image of the whole office. He attached the emails in my matter as an example of what supervisors should not do. So literally everyone saw what incompetent clowns they were. TL. Dr. Bad Bosses tried to get me in trouble with a client for something that was completely their fault, so I pulled receipts and made them look bad in front of not only the client but our entire office of hundreds of attorneys. Don't be rude to the cashier if you go to that store every day. Obligatory on mobile. Sorry for formatting. When I was in college I would work at the liquor store in my hometown each summer to earn cash for the school year. Important things to note, I had been doing this for a few years and my cumulative working time made me one of the store's most veteran employees, but since other employees only ever lasted a few months no one knew me. Therefore each time I came back I was seen as the new guy. This also applied to the regular customers. Since I was only working during the summers I would work 6 days a week to try to save as much money as possible. It was a small town so we were the only liquor store besides stores like Walmart, which are allowed to sell in my state. Finally, the last thing to note is state law says anyone under 40 needs to be ID'd, and store policy was to check a second document to make sure the name matched their official ID. Anyways, a few days after I started for my third summer I had a customer come in. I hadn't seen him before and he looked to be in his mid-late 20s, so of course I ID him. I can tell he's slightly annoyed at being ID'd, as regulars of the store often are. but he gives it to me and that's the end of it. Or at least so I thought. A few hours later he's back in the store picking something else up. I remembered him from earlier, but state law technically says if they leave the store and come back we have to ID again, even if we know for a fact they are over 21. Also my manager happened to be in the store at that time watching. So naturally as he's checking out I ask him for his ID again. He will be rude customer, RC, and I will be ME. RC, wow you must have a really bad memory hubbard. Me, excuse me? RC, I was in here earlier, I thought you would remember. Me, I'm sorry sir, I do actually remember you but I still have to ID again since you left. Also that's my manager over there and he doesn't know you were here earlier, so if he were to see me not ID I could get in trouble. RC, no, you don't have to try and make up excuses, just admit you have a bad memory. I know you're new so you don't know how IDing works yet, but just remember my face. I'll be in here most days so don't waste my time asking for my ID. At this point I was pissed that he insinuated that A, I was making up excuses, B, I had a bad memory, C, that I didn't know what I was doing, and D, he felt that since he came off and the law didn't apply to him. Now admittedly it was pretty standard practice with a lot of the employees that once you knew a regular you wouldn't always ID, but I decided no, this guy. I vowed at that point on if he ever came in when I was working I would make sure to not only ID him but ask for a second form because it's store policy. I didn't know at the time but I later came to find out that our work schedules coincided so that I was working when he was off work and Abel would come in. Other things I found out are that he came in almost every single day when he got done with work, and that he lived close by, therefore walk to work and the store, which is important because it means he couldn't go to a different store each day. Since I worked 6 days a week and at the time you couldn't buy alcohol on Sundays, he had to see me every day. Over the next month or two I would ID him almost daily, and always made sure to ask for 2 forms. If there was a second checkout line RC would always get in the other line even if it was longer. The problem for him was that because I had become the manager of that store it was normally only me and one other employee during my shift. I would normally handle the register while my co-worker stocked the cooler. This meant 80% of the time I was the only checkout line so there was no avoiding me. The first part of my revenge was the minor inconvenience to him of constantly being ID'd, but I got several small acts of revenge in addition. One would be when he would see me not ID other customers who were regulars in front of him, which pissed him off. Others came from some of the interactions we had, such as this. RC, I swear you have the worst memory of anyone I have ever met. Me, what do you mean? RC, I would think that by now you would know I am over 21 and stop asking for my ID. Me, oh I know you are over 21. In fact I have a pretty good memory. You have a out-of-state license, and your date of birth is XXXXXXXX. Now before I can sell this to you, do you have 2 forms of ID on you? His hatred for me continued to boil for about another month until he hit his tipping. It was actually my last day working before I went back to school and he came in. I was excited to have one last opportunity to be petty. He came in when we were rather busy, so a full line of customers and my manager had stopped by. When it was RC's turn to check out he threw his 2 forms of ID on the counter before I had a chance to say anything. As I was checking them he let out a defeated sigh. Here's what followed. RC, I should really stop coming here, this store has been a massive pain in my butt. Actually you know what, no it's not the store, it's just you. You have been a massive pain. Me acting innocent, what do you mean? All I have ever done is my job and sold you your alcohol. At this point he started literally screaming, which took me by surprise a bit. RC, you know damn well what you have done. You flipping know I am over 21 but you always flipping ask me for my ID. Flip you. I have seen you not ID others. I want to talk to your flipping boss. If it's really state law and store policy you should be asking everyone for their ID as much as you ask me. I am going to get you flipping fired, you flipping person. Me. Sir, please calm down. I assure that I am only doing my job by asking for your ID. I know it's sometimes inconvenient, but both the store and myself could be fined if I don't ID. RC, bull flipping poop, you always make excuses and I'm tired of it. Your co-workers don't ID me, they know who I am, it's just you. At this point he was cut off by my manager. B for boss. B. What is the problem here? C. This guy keeps hiding me even though he knows I am over 21. B. So? That's both store policy and the law. Also sir, I can't have you screaming and using that type of language here. I am going to have to ask you to leave the premises. C. Fine. Let me finishing paying for my B. No, I need you to leave now. I am denying you this sale. I won't sell alcohol to anyone who is already acting belligerent in public. He ended up leaving on his normal purchase. At this point both the customers behind him and my boss asked me what set him off. I just said I don't know, all I did was check his ID. TLDR. Customer is rude to me because I asked him for ID, so I made sure to ID him until he couldn't take it. Like and subscribe for more daily Reddit videos.